This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, ready? Okay. We'll start the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting for Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Chris Herbal,
Here.
Tracy Kluge,
Here.
Tom Self,
Here.
Allison Burnett,
Here.
and Kelly Service.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, I'll take action on the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Action on the minutes from December 14th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda, must state name and address, limited to 5 minutes. Board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personal issues cannot be discussed, nor individuals named. Board is not able to take action on this meeting. There's nobody present. Anybody online? Nobody there? What's up?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. All right, moving on, action items. A, discussion of possible action on 2022 wage increase option for aquatic positions. Rex, I believe. And Melanie.
Hi, guys. So we're here today to talk about looking at raising the lifeguard wage for the current 2022 season. As you guys have heard me talk before about the lifeguard shortages that are going around, they're really hurting our local area, specifically as far as finding staff. To combat that, other municipalities have now increased their wages, offered bonuses and things like that as incentives to try and boost their lifeguards. In doing that this year, that puts us behind the 8 ball with everybody else. So we are on the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to wages. We are hoping that with this amount right here, I'm requesting a $2.50 increase for the lifeguards, the swim instructors, and the aquatic supervisors, along with a $150 bonus. We're hoping that that will incentivize our staff, number one, to stay, and then number two, as I'm recruiting for more staff. It's a constant recruitment all year long for lifeguards. I hold different lifeguarding classes and stuff like that, and so to at least be competitive with the area market is really important. My staff, once hearing that some of these other municipalities and wages were increased, came to me and said, you know, we need some more. We don't want to leave. We love working for you and love working for Ashwaubenon, but these are kids that I've had for 2-3 years. This is their last summer before they go off to college. They're looking to save money. They're looking to do whatever they can do. And unfortunately, or fortunately in the world that we live in, they can work at Walmart for that, or Panda Express. You can see it right on the window when you drive by. So we put a lot of responsibility on these kids, a lot of requirements. The training is every single week, lots of hours before the summer even starts. And so I'm hoping that if you have any questions about this, or you're looking at the proposal, that's something that we could do for the 2022 season starting up, that I would be able to offer this to my staff.
I want to jump in real quick and say that I appreciate the fact that we're able to come to you guys tonight. Normally, we would do this through the regular budget process in September, and when we had called around to other municipalities at that time, we felt we were still in line. A lot of these increases are being driven in 2022. They weren't necessarily approved by other municipalities in 2021 when the budget process was going on. With the shortage of workers, a lot of places are basically doing the same thing that we're doing right now. De Pere went to their administration, I want to say in January or February, and that's when that increase took place. So it kind of puts everyone then, as Melody said, behind the 8 ball real quickly, because no one was expecting certain things to happen. And quite honestly, it's a domino effect now, because De Pere raised their wages so high, so that, because they have a brand new aquatic facility, trying to attract the staff, and they had trouble staffing it last year, which had some political ramifications. So they decided last minute, once they got into 2022, to increase their wages, and then bang, 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 bang. Now all of a sudden, well, everyone's trying to keep up with the Joneses right now, which is such a lovely situation to be in, but yet here we are, to try and keep their staff and keep them from moving and playing hopscotch between the different pools that are out there. It's not the right thing to do, but that's where we're at right now.
Well, that's definitely understandable. Actually, this is at this point the right thing to do, I think, because just the way society is right now, in this time, things are changing so fast. You got to be on your feet and be able to move. Melanie, you brought up a good point before about the wages for aquatics and other municipalities going up. We're not only going up against other municipalities, park and recs, but we're going up against, the other part-time jobs, the Walmarts and restaurants, things like that. Have we taken into account what those wages are, what we're competing against in the private sector? Or is that kind of have been done already through these other municipalities?
So these are just strictly lifeguards. I mean, yes, I've gone into Walmart and seen the signs. I haven't put those numbers together because I look for a specific group of kids. I look for a specific quality of specific talent, skill, which isn't necessarily possessed by everyone. And so I've been able to, as long as I can compete right now with this lifeguard wage and the kids that I'm looking to get, I think that I'll be okay. The kids that work for me don't want to work at Walmart. They don't want to serve food. They like being outdoors and helping people. So I haven't gathered that information. I think that would be kind of scary if we started looking at it in all reality. This is just a proposal for this year. I do plan on coming next in the budget season, how it's supposed to kind of go along, like Rex said, and I'll broaden that for us to kind of look at.
Yeah, probably be. Because if you continue to hear that comment, obviously it's something you're going to want to, as much as you want to shut your eyes to it.
No, not at all.
You want to, have that as extra, just information, and if it's got to come next year in front of the budget. And
Chris, I know one thing that just drive up and down Oneida Street, right? I mean, you can see half the signs, starting wage up to $14 an hour, starting wage up to $16 an hour, that type of thing. A parent in our social circle just said their child just got hired to work at Menards for the summer. Started them at $18 an hour just to work at Menards, part-time, a couple days a week type of a thing, at 18. So it's, you think it's just crazy out there, and I don't know, hopefully it will stop soon, or at least level off of how high do you go type of a thing. But you're correct. All the other positions in the Park and Rec Department are competing against everything else that's out there as well, not just the lifeguards. But Mel said it well, is this is a specific skill set. The kids that want to be lifeguards, and they're going to go where, luckily Mel puts in makes a great atmosphere, a working atmosphere where they want to work for her, as long as the wages are going to be competitive. So that's why we're here.
And there's no way you're going to compete with a lot of those private sector jobs. You just can't. We don't have the budget for it. But when you do, somebody is thinking about jumping, it'd be kind of interesting to know how close do you need to come to retain them. Because if they love doing, and you're right, if they love doing this type of work, maybe they'll take $2 less than what Walmart offers them, or about 50 less or something. It'd be interesting to, know what's out there.
Yeah, I'll definitely, when we go through this process, I'll gather a bunch of that kind of information.
Sure.
I'm in favor of it. I just have a question. I don't know if it's for you or for my fellow members here. Where, do we have like a reserve, or do we have, like, where's the money going to come from?
And I can attempt to answer that question. So just to kind of tie into what Melody and Rex had provided for information, we obviously talked internally as to how we can financially support this request. And there were other factors that were taken into consideration as Melody had prepared her proposal for the committee's review tonight. As you notice, a couple of the other municipalities may have lower hourly rates, but then provide a seasonal bonus. We did not feel that that was appropriate given the context of how we operate, as our lifeguards not only operate in the summer at the lake, but they also work at the indoor pool at the school, and they do that year round. So it would be difficult for us administratively to provide that single lump sum bonus for a seasonal lifeguard, because they're going to be working or have the potential to work at more than one facility. So we did look at that. And then with that being said, we looked at kind of what we presume to be our estimated annual impact at about $22,000 to $28,000 for that wage. And then looking at the prior 3 years of spending within the department, not only at the lake, but the pool, but the department in general, we should have range or capability within the operating budget to account for that increase. But that's going to require Melody and Rex to kind of, really kind of tighten the ratchet, if you will, become more efficient in their overall operating expenditures to meet that. But then also couple that with some possible pricing increases for a variety of things. And Melody had indicated that in the memorandum, that there's some increasing in pricing for swim lessons, concession pricing, things of that nature will take into effect.
I saw that, but that starts next year, right? The prices for this year were already set, I thought it said.
Swim lessons and concession pricing is to be determined, but the actual entrance fee for the lake has been set. And again, and Rex and Melody can certainly tie into that conversation. In our internal talking points, we did not want to approach, not that we don't have the capability, but we didn't want to recommend an increase in the admission fees for the lake, because we are maintaining a competitive environment. And we're a lake, we're not a swimming pool. And so we felt that in order to maintain the volume of patronage, it was important to maintain the rate the way it was.
I thought they were asking for the $150 bonus.
We are asking for a $150 bonus.
That's
Just
And that's for an amount, it's for a period of time. So
Right.
it's from the beginning, I think the big dates are in there, May 24th is when their first training starts, and it needs to end by the end of summer when the lake closes.
Okay, so
So those, they're a set date that they have to obtain those hours within.
got
So the 150 is specific to the season. The wage would be, it's a commitment because you're creating kind of a perpetual change in the overall rate.
The wage rate would go into the fall for the fall workers as well. I mean, once you have that rate, there's no kind of going back.
No, I'm totally in favor of bonuses for that reason, because once you do the raise, you can't take that back. But you could choose not to give a bonus. But
I think we need to increase it. I had mentioned this at budget last year, thinking about this, because I could see this coming last fall with Melody talking about how difficult it was to get aquatic staff. So I totally agree with raising it. My question is, should the supervisor and head lifeguard go up more? They're, $250, the difference, the variance is $3. And when you look at the other wages for supervisory positions with other communities, we're going to be a little bit low. So I would like to see that one bumped maybe even to the $3 for any of the supervisory positions rather than the $250.
And I'm obviously not opposed to doing that. That's something that I was planning. I was just trying to kind of be even across the board and have the least amount of, I guess, impact, especially when I'm coming out of the budget, not of the budget process, with this proposal to you guys. So, and truthfully, those head lifeguards and those supervisors are the ones that we're trying to keep. Those are the ones that I've already trained, I've already worked with. They've given me, 2 or 3 years of their lives here. And the lake is different. The lake is not something you can't, when you go to your lifeguarding class and you become a lifeguard, you aren't certified necessarily to work at a lake. You don't, the lake, once you're under the water, you can't see. And so at a pool setting, you learn to scan and scan the tops of the water and the bottoms. At the lake, I teach them a whole different kind of ball game out there. And so those are the kids that I'm really looking not to lose, because they're the ones that then teach my newbies that come in how to do that. Those veterans are super important. I'm very lucky that my supervisors at the lake are going on probably year 5 or 6 with me. They're teachers, and so their summers are off, and this is just their fun job, their feet in the sand type job. And so I'm lucky to keep those staff pretty for a long time. But I do need to remain competitive, especially to keep those older ones that have the training. So
what should we do? I agree, that's a great idea. So should we make a friendly amendment to their request then and
Yeah, I
bump
mean,
it up?
when you think of the responsibilities those positions have, and having a good supervisor, having good head lifeguards takes a lot of pressure off of you as well. And you don't feel like you have to spend your whole summer out at the lake or at the pool. So I think raising that and making sure we have someone that really has that skill base and can take some of that responsibility off of Melody is a big deal.
What if we just adjusted the language so that the proposed rate for supervisor is up to 17 and the proposed rate for head lifeguard is up to 15, and then we leave it wholly up to you in the recruitment process to offer the wages that you feel are competitive to retain staff and attract qualified staff for those roles?
that would be something I would be able to do, because they're based on a step program as well. So I could just rate that based on their step or wherever they are with me.
This is,
Single 17 and 15.
yes, respectively for supervisor and head lifeguard. Just to understand the context of the lifeguarding needs throughout the year, I didn't realize until this meeting, quite frankly, that the lifeguards at the community pool were village staff members. I engage in pool programming, and I assumed those were just high school students just working, I don't know, for fun. So I guess I'm curious, where do those program rates fall? Like, when's the last time we've assessed those? Because I know my husband and I both use the pool, and it's kind of like an inside joke in our household how it's so cheap.
Well, so we just, like Joel had said, we did raise the swimming lesson rates $1 this season, and then it looks to raise for summer, and then in fall, we were looking at another $1. We had planned that prior to any of this, to do that gradual increase, because you're right, we are relatively inexpensive to do our swimming lessons.
I meant for like open swim and your aerobics programs, like even those, they're just, I mean, it's great as a resident, but had I been aware as a resident that there was a lifeguard shortage and that this was a village staff member, I wouldn't bat an eye and paying an extra $1 a session or whatever.
Right, and so that's something that Rex and I have talked about, looking at increasing those. I don't know that we've increased the open swim rate in probably 2 or 3 years, so we definitely can look at doing something like that. We do get quite a few people that do use it on the weekends and families, and so we're pretty busy. The instructional programs, so the water exercise and all of those have remained, they go up periodically, but it always covers, we're always looking to cover our cost of the facility and staffing and stuff like that. So we always just make sure that we do that. I've always kind of tried to keep the mentality that we're always at community service, and we want to offer these programs to our residents, and keep them as affordable as we can. But obviously in needs and times like this, we need to look at doing something. And I think people understand that.
So we are in tune with what other municipalities are charging. For a lot of the rates, we're on par with them. We're kind of like right in the middle. There's a couple of the Ys typically a little more expensive because of the nature of the Y, and needing to have more cost recovery. But in terms of other municipalities, the majority of our rates are on line with others. Now, I would assume today that will change in the fall. I have a feeling just because of the need to increase rates, whatever municipality we're talking about, everyone's going to be like, oh my gosh, how are we going to make this up? So I would imagine there's going to be a whole cost price correction across the board with all the municipalities, certainly as it relates to aquatic programs coming up for 2023, which would be brought to you during the 2022 budget process this September.
I guess
for a
I'd
little-
just like to see wherever possible, we maintain the affordability of the lake for families and pass on cost increases to adult users that are using maybe pool facilities wherever possible, just because I know that the lake is an incredibly accessible and family-friendly priced amenity in our community. Obviously, we have to absorb the cost to staff it adequately, ensure that it is open regularly, but I don't know, I just prefer to keep that affordable for families as much as possible and pass on costs, maybe with the pool where it's more adult users.
No, that's definitely something we can look into. Just so so now you have kind of an overview that the pool and the lake, although it's at the high school, I'm the dual employee that just runs both things. So yeah, those kids work at the lake too, and they're at the pool, and some are high school, some are college, some are just ones that never leave me, so.
With the increase, if this goes through, how confident are you that you can fill the positions?
Of the lifeguards this year? So right now, currently, I am 5 full-time lifeguards short at the lake, and I am 2 at the pool in the summer. So those are my full-time positions. I have a lifeguarding class I'll be teaching all weekend with 7 kids in it, so I'm hoping to pull every single one of those. Kind of in the world that is aquatics and lifeguards and working with teenagers, you never have enough staff. So I want as many people as I can get, because these kids have sports and they have vacations and they have, things that they are involved in that requires a good sub list. So I think that, I work really hard in the beginning of the summer to start off full staffed. And then as we trickle along, having enough, bringing more staff in to get to that spot where we don't have to worry. So I'm pretty confident with this raise and what we're proposing that I'll be able to keep the staff that I currently have, which is number one for me, and then also be able to recruit that staff for this season.
The main thing, Tom, is, as Mel said, we just want to try, the biggest issue for us is keeping the staff we've got. The reason this is being brought forward is, one of the reasons is Melody's had more than a handful of questions from current staff, kind of like, hey, what's going on? How come the peers offering this rate? How are we going to go up? And so when you start hearing that, I guarantee you behind the scenes during the lunch breaks, when they go out, to whatever, someone's house to have a good time on whatever, whenever they're doing it, they're talking. And they're talking about rates and how much money they can make and comparing different municipalities, I guarantee it. So that's what our concern is right now, is we're not that far away from where we need to be full-time staff, and Mel does a great job with the lifeguard training courses, but we cannot afford to lose the staff that we've got when they're talking about what other places are offering. And they're aware of that, because they've been asking Melody more than a couple of them. That's when the red flag for me goes up, when you start to hear that.
If there's no other discussion, I'd like to make a motion to approve increasing the wages for the aquatics for the lifeguard, swim instructor with WSI, and swim instructor without the WSI by $250, and then increasing the supervisor and the head lifeguard by $3, and also offering the $150 seasonal commitment bonus to all of your aquatic
Second.
employees.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Took a weight off my shoulders this summer.
All right, we got 7B, 2021 General Fund Financial Report. Greg?
All right, so the audit is officially officially done, let's put it that way. So they're still wrapping up final reporting. And in June, the auditors will come into the village board meeting and present on the audit. Financials, for all intents and purposes, are locked in. So what I want to provide you is where we're at, how we ended the year, just give an update. There were a lot of puts and takes, some larger than normal this year, but at the end of the day, we budgeted in the general fund $325,000 loss. It was a one-time issue. We knew we would budget that. Part of it was we had debt service commitments that were going to be coming down about $300,000 in 2022. We did a balanced budget in 2022, so we've been following that. But the year, as it turns out, ended up $101,000 in the plus, so $425,000 better than budget. And some of the reasons out there kind of listed out, and this information will be also on the next agenda item. Room tax revenue is up 100,000, intergovernmental aids up 54, permitting up 72, rescue services up 100, and then we had some big positive variances through personnel, through attrition, a lot of attrition. We had a transit refund of $260,000, and what that is, typically our transit services, the bus services, we contract with the city of Green Bay, and they run an audit usually every May, June, and then they give us typically about $30,000 to $60,000 refund, depending on their numbers, from the prior year. Well, this year in 2021, our refund was so large because of all the COVID aid that they received that they had to then pass along to all of their customers. So that was a huge refund. On the flip side, we had some larger costs in some areas as well. So at the end of the day, we lost $160,000 in investment income, which has just been, through the economy, we've lost a lot of earnings there. And we had fines and forfeitures were down. I think a lot of that's COVID related. Crime was down and there wasn't as much going on, and I think it's picking up again, so that'll be good for revenue. Not good for anything else. But anyway, so there's a lot of bigger puts and takes. We had our normal variances here and there through all the budgets, but at the end of the day, that's kind of how the village played out. So it's a good problem. I'll recommend in the next thing to transfer those funds out so that we'll actually show and report a $325,000 loss as we budgeted, and we can then use those excess funds for other purposes, but I'll touch base on that in the next agenda item. So I don't know if you have any questions. Those are just really information only on how the year ended.
I just have a question on the forestry contracted services. It looks like we were positive 71,000. Was just the contract prices came in so low? Is that the reason for that?
Well, I think at the end of the day, that specifically, I don't think Tim got to that with EAB, and we had bonded for that. I think a lot of his work has shifted there. This was kind of our normal year-to-year trimming services, and we've been tied up with other areas, so he didn't spend. There's about $75,000 that's put in the budget every year for him for contracted tree services, and they just didn't get to it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to just point out there's a couple of somewhat wonky items within the variances that aren't going to be found in a typical year. One of those, as Greg had mentioned, that transit services refund. That is not a typical refund that we would get based on the ARPA dollars that they received and other federal aids. That obviously was a significant amount. In addition to that, they changed transit service routes this past year, and through that changed the funding formula that came back. And so I don't want to say they felt bad, but because of the change in the reduction of service this last year, we got a larger refund as a result of the decrease in service that the village is now receiving as a result of those route changes. So we will not see that again in future years. The other thing that we had a number of settlement-related matters with pending litigations that were kind of a one-time situation, both on the revenue side as well as the expenditure side. And so again, those are significant dollar amounts, but those are not to be seen in a typical year. So I just wanted to point those out that they are a little bit different and do create some larger numbers, but those are not to be expected. And certainly we don't typically budget for those things because we don't know how they're going to play out in court until it's resolved.
Greg, help me explain to me. What you said there's a budget surplus, okay? And I'm looking at later in the report, there's investment summary. The general fund only changed like $30,000. Help me wrap my head around that. I'm struggling with, big numbers and it's only changed by $30,000.
I'm sorry, what are you referencing the 30,000 from?
Investment summary at the end.
So the last agenda item for this meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just investments only. So that would be investment income. And that's just one small piece of this is the general fund as a whole. This is everything, all of our revenues, all of our expenditures for all the departments. So that's one piece. Our investment, overall investments were down. Our investment income is down, what did I say, 161,000. And that includes unappreciated valuation of the portfolio. So sometimes if you look at the investment report, you see the rate or the investment income, which is the specific cash that you're getting. That's one piece of that total number. Then the portfolios as it's on its own will lose value because our portfolio has a large number of bonds that it buys into. And so as those portfolios are constantly changing and turning over, we're in a really bad environment right now. And it's usually is a lag. So as the economy went down, so you've got devaluation of the investment portfolio, which you have to recognize as lost income, if you will, on your books. Even though we haven't officially sold some of those assets, they've just lost value. So you can't really compare just that investment summary. That's one small piece of the entire general fund budget. So we ended the year with 101,000 surplus. That would have been higher if the investments wouldn't have gone down in value. We would have had even more surplus. So that's just one piece of the whole puzzle. I don't know if that helps answer.
Yes or no?
Okay.
I guess I'm still, where are you going to get this $400,000 surplus? Are you going to move it? Proposing that it's moving. Where's it coming from?
So at the end of the day, we do a balanced budget. So we receive cash of our revenues and we expend cash in our expenses. So all of this surplus is related to the actual revenues and expenditures, which translate to actual dollars that are recorded as cash by all of our accounting rules. So in this case, we budgeted $325,000 loss that we intended to go into our reserves to help cover that loss. We talked about it during the budgeting season for 2021 that we have a fund balance policy of 20%. We're sitting around 34%, and what that means is, it's a percent of your expenditures against your fund balance. So we say we need to make sure that our expenditures are no less than 20% of our fund balance. Our fund balance is going to cover at 20%. So we're at 34%. We recognize we can bring down our fund balance a little bit to help this one-time year problem that we had. Well, through the course of the year, all these other things came into play. So recycling revenue, for example, we had $0 because we were paying for recycling, and then last year it flipped, and we were getting money for recycling. So that was an additional $50,000 that we didn't have budgeted that will increase our fund balance. So that's actual cash coming. Permitting, $72,000 more of permits than we expected. You just look around all the development that's going on. Sometimes that's hard to predict timing-wise. Room tax revenues bounce back really fast. We knew that was potentially going to happen, but we couldn't know for sure. And then the transit refund was unexpected cash coming into our coffers, if you will. And then of course there's some other things that we didn't get cable TV franchise revenues that we expected. That's physical cash coming in. We were short 44,000 because more and more people are shifting to other types of TV entertainment versus cable TV. So all these pieces change how much cash we actually have been coming in, and we have actually 426,000 more of dollars coming in than what we had budgeted through all those other little pieces. That interest is just one piece of that.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? No? Good. Okay, we'll move on to 7C, transfer of excess 2021 general fund dollars.
So this item's repetitive, it's just kind of continuation. So now we have that excess funds, what do we do with that? We have, in the past, traditionally tried to hold our budget, especially if we have surplus, to what we said it was going to be. It's a really good practice from a rating agency perspective. They see what we budgeted and we met it. Of course, they would like to see that you have excess. Problem is when you have excess funds, you put it in your reserves and you know, it's called committed or created as restricted for specific purposes, but still sits in that fund. And then when you spend down, let's say we had a balanced budget and we take that 400,000, spend it this year and kept everything else the same, it's going to look like we had a loss of $400,000 for 2022. And we can walk and explain that, but when you go to bond, we put our financials out there and then investors read these reports. And if they happen to read the footnotes, great, but if they just do a quick glance and see, oh, they've been losing money every year, because every year we have surplus, but then we spend it, it looks like we're losing money every year. So what the village decided to do, actually at the end of TIF 2, knowing that we have these retirements that are out there, we created a separate fund for employee retirements, and we decided, in many cases, take the money out, transfer it to some other fund, so your general fund looks a lot cleaner and pure, and then assign these funds for other purposes. In this case, we're recommending at this time to put it in the employee retirement fund. We have a number of retirements potentially that could happen over the next year or two specifically that will draw down the funds quickly, and we have to find a source of funds to pay that. We have in the past also put it in our village building fund for other projects. We've also put it in other capital project funds for specific projects. The nice thing is we move it here now, and the board always has the ability to come back and say, hey, remember when we put that money in there? Can we use it for this other project and we can repurpose the funds? It's kind of a nice, clean way to use those funds. And quite honestly, I talked with Joel and Mary, and I think the best solution would be put it there now. Let's see how the year plays out, because sometimes it's hard to predict who's going to retire and who's not going to retire. And then at the budget time, kind of address it better. And if we feel like, hey, we could maybe use these funds in another purpose, we could bring that up during the budgeting process. The nice thing that we have, as far as it'd be nice to use the funds for other capital projects, we have a really good problem with the ARPA funds right now. We have a lot of money and we've assigned a lot of it for specific projects this year, but we're going to, through the budgeting process, have to address how do we spend the next 900,000 as well. So the village has, fortunately, some money to help alleviate any potential future capital needs, but we know for sure we're going to have some employee retirement payouts coming in the next year to 3 years, and this is just a transfer over there. That fund balance at the end of the year is about 63,000, so we do need to replenish it anyway. And then over the course of time, like I said, we'll know in about 6 months where we're at this year, and then have a better idea for next year as well. So the recommendation is just to put it there for now, for that use, and then again, the board ultimately would have the power to come back if we ever needed it to take it out for some other purpose.
I'd like to make a recommendation. Might be a little out there and wacky, but I'm deeply concerned about the hiring challenges that local governments are facing right now. So I don't have an issue with the majority of these funds being moved to the retirement fund, but I know that there's a number of positions currently out for hire that the village is seeking to fill. I know in particular how challenging it is to hire qualified building inspectors right now, for example. I'd actually like to propose that part of this fund, maybe we just, to keep the numbers clean, move 400,000 over to the retirement fund. I'd like to set aside some of those dollars, maybe it would be the remaining 26,000, and earmark it for one-time hiring bonuses for full-time positions that are out this year, and leave it at the discretion of the village administrator of where those dollars are needed most, so that we can really focus on ensuring that the village is fully staffed, and that despite the fact that it's an incredibly competitive labor market, give our staff the tools they need to influence fully staffed village organization. What does everyone else think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about it with aquatics. We have the same problem there that we have probably overall with all employees. My question to Joel is, let's say we are hiring a building inspectors, for instance, and our wage is 20 to 40,000. I'm just throwing numbers out. And we have a candidate, if we go higher than that, is there a way right now for us to be able to supplement that higher wage?
Yes, I think we have enough flexibility to handle that. It just, to a certain extent or a certain point, based on the requirements for that employee. Now, if we were going through the process, so the senior building inspector is a really good example. We have an existing position. There were no changes to the job description. We wanted to quickly fill that position, just knowing the demands that the department has. So we went ahead and we posted that particular position. If we were making changes to the position or the job description, then we kind of do more of a full review of that job, comes through finance personnel. We then review wages based on expectations of the position, and a wage range is then set for that new job. So this one was a little unique in that we were trying to expedite the hiring process to get somebody in. Where we run into a little bit of challenge is when we advertise for this position, we advertise for a range. And that range is the low to the high end of that position. When we go through the hiring process, we have an individual candidate that we really like that has, let's say, a similar or pretty much the same credentials that our existing building inspector has. And let's just hypothetically say that both the prospective candidate and our existing employee are at the high end of that wage. Now, that prospective employee says, well, I'd be willing to come here if I got another $1,000 as a sign-on bonus or if I got another $1 per hour in wage. What do we do with the existing employee then? And that's where I think we struggle a little bit administratively in figuring out what's the fairest, most equitable way to manage both the new hire that's coming in to encourage and entice them to be here, but yet retain and appreciate the existing employees that may be close or maxed out to that wage range. I'm not here to debate or deliberate on the proposal that Ms. Brunette had presented. But I do want to point out a couple things that are related to another agenda item, and it's all a really great conversation. One of the things that we would like to do over the course of this year is to do a wage and compensation study and then bring those results back and make sure that we are staying competitive. Within that proposal will be eventually the ability to adjust market rate. So even though a position may not necessarily fit within a specific grade, based on the expectations, the education, the experience requirements for the job. Based on market conditions, we have flexibility to make adjustments then to that wage to address that. Building inspector is an example, and you know, Allison, based on your experience with Kaukauna, that it is very difficult to find qualified people for that position. So oftentimes you're making market adjustments, even though when you look at it on paper, the position shouldn't earn more than X position in your table of organization, but they will because the market dictates it. So we want to make sure we have that flexibility. I do want to kind of touch on this item too. It's somewhat related to the conversation. So unbeknownst to just about, well, I shouldn't say every municipality, but unbeknownst to municipalities that provide a police or public safety department, the state issued grants to each municipality for the purposes of trying to encourage recruitment and retention for public safety employees. The village is to receive another just under $49,000 for that purpose. Now that has to be specifically used in the public safety arena. We don't have a lot of details on it. We had a lot of pomp and circumstance for it when the announcement came out, but we're still waiting for the specific details of that spend. So there could be an additional pot of money that could go towards at least the public safety end of things as it relates to recruitment and retention. But to kind of go back to Greg's point here, this $426,000 roughly, essentially what we're doing is we're taking it from really what would be viewed as an unrestricted fund balance from the general fund, and recommending putting it into what would be considered a restricted fund for the purposes of basically providing resources for what is largely viewed as an unfunded liability at this point. Typically, when we have a tenured employee with the village that has accumulated a significant amount of sick leave or vacation time that gets paid out at the point of retirement, it's anywhere between $50,000 to $75,000 roughly per employee. So if we figure 2 to 4 employees over the course of this next 12-month period where we'll have retirements, we will not have sufficient funds in that restricted fund at the moment to make those payments. So regardless if we transfer today or when those retirements occur, there will be a point where we would have to come back to the village, to committee and board, to request those funds to be placed into that account, more or less to make those really those unfunded commitments that we have with our employees at the point of retirement.
I do really appreciate the market compensation study that's addressed on the later agenda item, and we can talk about it more at that time. I just so strongly feel that local government is often not able to be responsive to the market, and if we could allocate some of these funds towards a one-time, purely market-driven solution to help empower the village staff to hire and to fill vacancies, I'd fully support it. And we can address perhaps inequities or difficulties or challenges with the retention side of things where maybe existing employees feel a little bit shorted that they don't qualify for that sign-on bonus. That can certainly be addressed through that market compensation study and through the next budget season. But I'm just concerned about vacancies, and I want to make sure the village is as competitive as possible when it comes to recruitment.
I think if the committee is agreeable to that approach, then the recommendation would be to transfer the $400,000 from the general fund balance into the employee retirement fund. The balance of that, then the 26,121 or whatever that dollar amount is, would then be basically left in the general fund balance. And then my recommendation would be is for the committee to request staff bring back a proposal for how that would be then administered so that the committee and the board ultimately approve a program for how that will play out over the course of the next 12 months.
Do you want me to word that? I'll make a motion to transfer $400,000 of the 2021 general fund excess funds to the employee retirement fund and to retain the remaining $26,141 in the general fund, and for staff to bring forth a plan at the next Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of a one-time 2022 hiring bonus program to attract staff to full-time vacancies within the village.
Can I just ask one more question? You won't have to repeat that whole thing. We can just second it after.
Let me second it quick.
Yeah, there you go. I'm in favor of, putting the money where you're talking about, and I'm glad Greg explained, because when I came in here, I thought, why don't we just keep it in the general fund, and then it's easier to get at it, you would think. But now I understand that.
Yeah, just and real quickly, Kelly, if we could, just from a process standpoint, since we have a motion, if we could get a second to the motion. Oh, you did. I'm sorry, I missed that. And now, certainly. Thank you.
Is there any danger, once we put it in the employee retirement fund, that it's going to look bad if we need it to I feel like we're going to be raiding the employee retirement fund, to get that money back if we need it for something, and that's not going to look good?
No, not necessarily. It's understood that that it's part of the advantage of putting it in a separate fund is really a lot of, for financial purposes and rating purposes, the general fund is what people look at. Yeah, there's your capital projects funds and special revenue funds, but they really focus on your day-to-day general operations because they recognize these other funds are going to have, peaks and valleys with projects, things going on, but they're really focused on how well is this business run. So they're looking at the general fund. And no, I think if there's an assigned purpose and it makes sense, then you walk through it and it's noted in the financials accordingly. I wouldn't be overly concerned about it.
Okay.
So in the end, the whole 426 stays real fluid liquid. You can get at it no matter on both ends if this is voted in, correct?
Correct.
Like that 26 doesn't get No, that
The 20
stays
the
in the,
26,
yeah. Okay, I got it.
The balance, the way that it was proposed is what I will do, just from an accounting perspective, is I'll put that as restricted cash within our fund balance. So it's assigned for a specific purpose that you've just noted. Therefore, it cannot be used for any other purpose unless ultimately the board has to decide this. And then the only way that it could be used for other purpose, the board would have to come back and say, hey, we want to take that 26,000, take it out of restricted and put it wherever. It would take board action to change that at that point.
So, Allison, I like your forward thinking. I think it's great. But have we, just listen to everything Joel brought up, have we really changed anything? I mean, have we, it sounded like we wanted to go that direction anyway. You could do that, correct? As far as any kind of a bonus or retention pay or without doing this?
Well, sure. I appreciate the question. I think just to clarify, I think we have flexibility within the wage grade. So if we're hiring somebody within the grade itself, within the wage, we have flexibility and we can work within that. When we start to exceed outside of the approved wage grade or to provide bonuses and things of that nature, then we don't have a current program to allow for that. So just to clarify, we have enough administrative flexibility within the approved grade for each position. So we're not always just hiring at the highest end of that grade. We have flexibility based on the credentials of the applicant and their experience. But if we're going to extend and go beyond that by providing hiring bonuses or exceed the wage grade by X%, then we would need some authorization from the committee and the board to do that.
Okay.
I'm with you, Chris. I think we should move the whole amount in the retirement fund and just move it all in there. If they've got flexibility.
Well, that's why I brought it up. I mean,
Right, I agree with you.
Are we just creating, because you said if we decided, if this passed, then your next step with that 26,000, you would have to come back to us again?
Well, let's put it this way. Selfishly, because of all the entries are done, I would have to now open up the books and do another entry for the 26 back in.
No.
We could just come back with the study and say, hey, the study finds we need 26,000. And then in the current year, we could just make that transfer and leave 2021 clean and then come back. You have the ability, or the board has the ability to go back into those funds in the employee retirement and repurpose them at any point in time. That could be 5 years from now. If we didn't spend it, they can go and say, hey, remember when we transferred back in 2022? We need that now, and the board could take action. So in this case, if we come back with a study and it says, yep, that's about the exact number, maybe that study says we need 50. Maybe the study says we need 10. I don't know. Then you'd have a more exact number. We can make the transfer in the current year. So, I mean, I can do the entries. I'll just have to contact the auditors. They've already started doing some reporting. So I just caution it can be done. It's just, we can do it either way. We can do it now or we can do it next month.
Yeah.
So I think procedurally, because we had a motion and a second, would we motion to remove that, or would we vote and then issue a new motion?
So procedurally, if you are looking to rescind your motion, you as the mover of that motion can rescind your motion and remove it from the table or the floor, if you will. And then a new motion can be made to do
And that
so.
motion can include a directive for staff to bring back a one-time hiring bonus plan of action for us to consider at an upcoming meeting?
Yeah, I think what I would do, just to make it cleaner, given the nature of some of the agenda items tonight, is focus more on the transfer here. And then as it relates to this kind of hiring compensation program, let's take action when we get to that agenda item as it relates to the HR function.
Okay. I would move to rescind my previously stated motion.
Do I have to rescind my second then?
Yeah, I would just say, yep, that's fine.
Rescind my second then. And then I would make a motion.
What was the motion again? I'm sorry, what's the motion now?
We're removing the
Removing
previous
it.
motion.
And we're going to start over.
And we're going to start with the motion in the packet.
Yeah, I think you're basically rescinding the motion to
Split the funds.
split the funds between 400,000 and the balance. So that motion is no longer on the table. And I'm presuming that a future motion will be to transfer the full value
Yes.
into
I
the
will make
employee
that motion.
retirement.
transfer the 221 general fund excess balance to the employee retirement fund and recommend it to the board. I'll make that
Second.
motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Sorry.
Motion carries.
Good thoughts, though.
Yeah, definitely. I like, yeah, it was a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just not right time.
I'm sorry, who seconded it?
I did.
All right, 7D, investment policy. Greg, again.
So part of the policy is that I bring the policy to the Finance Personnel Committee once a year for review. There are no changes. Most of this, as we've talked in the past, is statutory language. The last time we made a change a year ago was just to fix some of my position became the treasurer, and it wasn't clerk treasurer, it's just some language changes. So I have no reason to change, nor has anyone proposed that, so.
I have a question. On page 2 of the investment policy, number 6, it says the village clerk and the finance director treasurer. How much is the village clerk involved at all anymore?
No, not really. It's more or less, as the clerk's position still is kind of the overseer of documents, they act as a backup for controls. The clerk's name is on our accounts payable and things like that. It's more or less a backup functionality, if you will. They still have the authority to help in this, but it's really driven by us. I guess there's a trust factor there. And again, that language was modified. It was always been clerk and finance director, and then it was clerk treasurer and finance director, and now it's just clerk. So I guess I don't know if there's any preference to remove that, but.
Yeah, it could be certainly cleaned up just to reference the current position titles. However, a village clerk under statutory law does have responsibilities as it relates to the payables and the claims against the village. And so they do perform a function to ensure that those claims against the village are being processed in accordance to statute. So that ties directly to the investment policy.
I have a quick question. I don't have a finance background, so it might be crystal clear after I ask my question. We lost money, right?
Yes.
So are we sure we don't want to change our investment strategy?
Well, let's address that in the next agenda item.
Okay.
I can talk to the best I can and make a proposal to bring in, if you'd like, some of our investment people to help explain what's going on in the market and how a lot of people think, well, you can go to the bank and get a CD right here. The way our investment portfolio is set up and how it's working and how it's operating, they're willing to do that. They actually reached out and asked if they'd want to, and I was going to ask if you'd want that. I can have someone come in from Associated Trust Company who we partner with, and they can, give you a better in-depth discussion on our investment portfolios and how the policy, what they do, and from a day-to-day. It might be a good discussion.
I'm probably the only one who needs it. You guys probably all understand what's going on, but I'm just, as a person, like an individual, if this was my bank account, I would be like, what do we need to change here so
Right.
that I'm not losing money next year?
I think there's just, market fluctuations are a norm. I know all of my retirement, I'm hopefully don't have to touch them for a long time, but all of my retirement savings went down last quarter. So I think
Start using it.
different perspectives, but I think, fluctuations like this are normal, but come an abbreviated version of our investment strategy would be welcome, just maybe not the full length one.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I mean, and the order for us by statutory is in our policy. Yield is the last of the priorities. It's safety, liquidity, and yield. So you want to be real safe. We're not investing in, Eastern European hog hedging. We're pretty safe. Is it liquid? How quickly can we get the cash out? Because we need it. We can't just go make more widgets to make more revenue. And then the return is the third of the three. So that does limit in the investments that they can pick and choose. So, which is a good thing. We don't want to be out there being super aggressive. So, but I don't have any changes. That really wouldn't be addressed through the policy itself, but I could certainly bring in someone to walk through our portfolio and explain how this all works, what's been happening in the last 18, 24 months, what they're predicting for the next 24, how inflation impacts this, how do interest rates going up impact this, because they're buying, we're going to sell some bonds we issue debt to pay for projects. These are the kind of portfolios that are buying those bonds. These investors are buying government bonds. That's their investment. So they buy something at the 10-year yield and they just sit on it for 10 years. Well, then something comes off and something comes on, and there's a whole portfolio of that going on. It's not just what we typically see in our investment portfolios. It's a little bit different type of portfolio.
I'd be interested in it, as long as it's not, as long as the stormwater thing. Yes.
We'll start at about 8 o'clock at night, and
You enjoyed that stormwater.
I did enjoy it. It was a little long, but
I did too.
I didn't know any of that, so I enjoyed it.
I will try to coordinate for next meeting. I don't know their schedules, but certainly in the next month or two, we'll get someone in to talk through.
We can advise them that they get 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question. On page 24, Exhibit A, it has the investment policy, and it has excerpt from 2009, 2010 Wisconsin State Statute. Is that the latest? Have they not made any changes to their investments since that year? Or is there a more recent updated one?
You know what? I have a conference this week with other really exciting government finance officers. I will ask that question, but typically there's not a lot of change in this.
Yeah, I was thinking it probably doesn't change all that often, but I just thought that's pretty dated, that's pretty old, but maybe they haven't made changes, so.
Right.
If you can check, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, well, because we need a motion on this.
Motion to approve the investment policy?
I'll second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 7E, investment report.
Yeah, and so what we're seeing, we kind of alluded to it, the portfolio is not performing as well as we'd like to, and that's just a direct reflection of the economy, and it lags. So middle of last year is when it really kind of started to lag, and it's continuing, and it will typically, it's kind of like a fuel surcharge, right? You're gonna see it once that happens, and it's gonna lag. But you have to look long term with these types of things. You have to think, all right, we'll get out of this, and in a year or two, it'll pick right back up. At the end of the day, it's still significantly better than anything else we would have put our money into, because if we kept it in the bank, you're going to get 5 to 10 basis points there. If you put it in CDs, you're getting 1% over 3 years. I mean, there's not a lot out there, many options for us. The government investment pool right now, I can't remember where that's at, maybe 50 basis points, 75, somewhere in that range. So still, compared to the other investment options that we have, even though it's not performing well, it's still a better option long term, and that's what we want with this. This is long term money. So I can, like I said, I think what we'll do is, it is what it is here. I'll bring in someone and they can help walk through what's been going on, and they'll help better explain. But it really is just a reflection of the economy and a lag in our portfolio. This is just information.
Any questions, comments? No, everything good? Okay, thanks, Greg. Thanks for all your hard work too on everything. I think financially the village seems to be in a little stronger position than most people thought.
I will
after everything
comment
going
on that. I through the last 18 months, through COVID, the last 2 years, sitting in meetings with the league-sponsored meetings with other finance officers, what people are dealing with, we just aren't seeing. I kind of keep quiet because I'll make a comment, and I think they've recognized, oh, that's Ashwaubenon, right? Our room tax kind of went low, but nowhere near what some other communities were seeing, and other areas we've been able to position ourselves. We just have a great community, and obviously we have that big gold mine right over here. So, but still, as a whole, we operate very well. I hear people talking about, how they had to, bond more for vehicles. We don't do that kind of stuff. It's people are looking for short-term lending to make payroll. I mean, they don't have fund balances. They've over years have eaten into them instead of making difficult decisions. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. I mean, not awesome for them, but for us. Let's see. Staff up. Oh, what do we got here? Yeah, staff update on human resources consultant.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Essentially, it's been effectively 12 months since we began and implemented a third-party human resources consultant service to our village operations. Thought it would be important for me to bring back to you kind of where we're at year to date, what kind of expense that we've seen as a result of this implementation, and then talk about some of the priorities that have been kind of completed for this last 12-month period, as well as priorities that we would like to complete over the next, the remainder of this calendar year, really. So year to date, I should say for the fiscal year 2021, we had just under $24,000 of expenditures. Because we implemented the program prior or after January 1st, it was roughly in March, we were really operating over a 3-quarter period of time. So then I coupled that with our year-to-date spending for fiscal year 2022, and then combined that for a 12-month rolling period. So we're roughly just under $30,000 in expenses for this service over that 12-month rolling period. We do budget $50,000 annually. We did that for year 1. We did it as well for year 2. And so we're certainly well within our budgeted means. And we seem to be kind of meeting the needs of the agency as a result of that figure. So a couple things that obviously we completed over the last 12-month period. At the onset of our relationship with Human Resources Consultant, we had them complete a full HR audit of everything that we're doing and basically put together a list of items that needed to be accomplished immediately and items that we should address over the period of time that are considered best practices. The items that were identified as need to be met immediately have been addressed. They were things such as making sure we had up-to-date employment posters in our workplaces, things of that nature. Really easy, low-hanging fruit, quick to accomplish items. The other thing that the audit required us to do is to complete a full review and audit of all personnel files to make sure that information that was housed within the personnel files were there appropriately, confidential information, medical information, things of that nature were to be removed, and then a separate confidential file be created for those purposes. And so that was completed or is in current progress to make sure that we've met those audit requirements. We have had routine office hours 2 days a week, both office hours Monday mornings as well as Wednesday afternoons. Based on those office hours, our HR consultant is meeting typically with 4 to 6 individuals each week on a variety of related matters. It could be related to benefit administration, it could be related to employee relations, could be related to coaching, counseling, disciplinary type matters, but typically 4 to 6 individual employees will make direct contact with our HR person throughout the week.
Is that by appointment, or can they just walk in?
They can do it either way. So appointments can be made, and those appointments can be made outside of their established office hours. So the employee could meet with them outside at any period during the week. However, if they want to just drop in time, they could come during the established office hours and have those times as well. Again, those are kind of face-to-face meetings. The consultant also routinely fields calls directly from employees, usually between 2 to 4 calls per week on, a variety of matters. Could be something as simple as my spouse is planning, or we're planning to have a baby, I'm planning to take family medical leave, how do I do it? And so they kind of walk through that process. It could be something more significant and severe. I'm struggling with such and such. I'm struggling with a coworker. I'm struggling with a supervisor. Is there some counseling or help that you can provide me in addressing that? Or can you help me or point me in a direction of resources that the village may provide to me, such as an employee assistance program. And so they work through those issues with the employees. At this point, in talking with Annie from HR Consulting, it appears that the hours that we've established are sufficient for our needs at this time, and they are not recommending any changes at this point as it relates to that. One of the things that came up from the audit is at some point in the recent past, the village took over administering COBRA-related benefits, and really COBRA is a really difficult program to administer if you're not an expert in that. And so one of the things we did is we went back and we contracted with a third party to administer our COBRA benefits, because it can be rather cumbersome, not only to us to administer, but also the former employee that's receiving that benefit. And again, that came as a part of the audit. We really should do that to ensure that we're staying in front of the law. They are doing exit interviews and pre-termination meetings with employees for offboarding purposes. So if an employee obviously resigns from their post, they do perform exit interviews. Those exit interviews are kept in confidence. And basically themes come out of the meeting. So if they're hearing a theme coming out of the exit interview, then those themes are addressed versus very specific individual issues that the employee might have. Terry does a magnificent job of kind of just handling more of the administrative processing of things. And so Terry does a lot of work with HR. But one of the things that our employees had expressed to us is that they wanted to maintain some confidentiality as it related to family medical leave conditions and situations. So previously, the village manager may have been involved in kind of FMLA type requests. Those now obviously administered through Terry, and a lot of times those questions are resolved directly through HR, and I really don't play a role in that. And the same thing with workers' compensation issues, because oftentimes they're dealing with medical situations. So oftentimes, unless there's an issue with the insurance end of things, meaning the village is having some challenges with our insurance carrier, if it's directly related to the employee, HR deals with that, and I'm more focused on the insurance end to make sure that our coverage is being applied. We did do a more comprehensive employee relations review in public safety over the past year, and so those results ended with us having an all-staff meeting and talking through kind of the expectations for the department as it relates to employee relations, communication, trust building, policy development, things of that nature. So that was an important and pretty comprehensive time commitment for HR. We have had a lot of change in public safety as it relates to our supervisor position. So a lot of new lieutenants and captains. And as a result of that, these individuals, oftentimes, this is their first leadership or managerial role. So we wanted to make sure that we provided some on-hand training for them as it related to employee coaching, counseling, and discipline. So it wasn't that we had coaching, counseling, or discipline, but in the event that they needed to provide that level of care to the employee, then they had at least a baseline of training from HR on how to handle that appropriately. And then they also assisted us with implementation of a new background investigation process. So one of the things that we recognized in our audit is that we were conducting our own background investigations, and oftentimes that would provide for confidential information on the applicant, that individuals that may not have been in the need to know would become in the know on those issues, and that decisions maybe in the hiring process could be influenced then as a result of information on the background check that would not be applicable to the job. So we wanted to make sure that we had a third party basically doing the background investigations, and the information that we need to know is provided to us in making the hiring decision, and not information that we did not need to know. So again, that was an item that came up in the audit. So looking forward over the next remainder of the calendar year, we are currently in the process of reviewing, updating, and revising our job descriptions. Initially, it started with me doing it to just help kind of save cost and things of that nature. I just simply run out of time each day to really kind of put attention to it. So they are now taking that burden on, and will hopefully have that be completed sometime in the mid to early summer. And so you will see at some point, hopefully July or August, all of the job descriptions for each position for the village, full-time, part-time, permanent positions, for your review, recommendation for approval to the village board. That's going to be really important for us because those job descriptions are really going to be the basis for how we develop and establish a more formal pay and wage classification system, because we'll be utilizing those job descriptions to identify pay grades for each of the positions within that matrix. So we want to make sure that the job descriptions are up to date and reflective of the jobs that are being performed today. So that was item number 3, is just basically HR is going to be assisting us in reviewing our wage and compensation schedule, and then again, ultimately presenting that to the committee and ultimately to the village board for adoption. We are in the process right now with HR. It's kind of a shared responsibility between me and Ann with HR, revising our employee handbook. So what we did is we established an employee handbook review committee. That committee is made up of frontline employees from each department that are non-represented, of course, as represented employees are handled through the collective bargaining process. But non-represented frontline employees, so we have public works laborers, we have records clerks from the court, from public safety, we have administrative support staff from finance and public works, and they're on our committee. And effectively what we're doing is we're going section by section within our existing handbook, rewriting that section, and their role as a committee is not necessarily to devise new benefits that are going to be provided, but to make sure that how we're describing the benefit reads and is understandable to the employee that's actually using the handbook. As you know, we've had a lot of discrepancies and in things that were left to interpretation that ended in results of grievances and arbitration and things of that nature. Ultimately, that's what we're hoping to accomplish by having this committee review these items, is that there's the items that are left for interpretation are easily understood. And so again, we hope to have that completed before the end of the calendar year. And then again, because we have a lot of new managerial positions, or maybe individuals that were thrust into leadership roles within the organization and have not been provided with some type of training as it relates to employee management and employee relations, we would organizationally like to provide a high-level training to those leadership staff as well. Not on the memo, but an item I think is of importance that we are definitely working towards and trying to address, but in a shared role, is mental fitness. We, as you know, I think in society, mental health and wellness is at the forefront of many people's minds, and it is a concern for us as well. Our employees are under a great deal of stress and have a lot of responsibility, and society certainly doesn't necessarily make that easy on us. And so we know and we recognize that mental health and wellness, fitness, is a concern for them. So we are working with our partners, with our health benefit plan administrators, as well as Bellin Health, to find resources that could be made available to our employees to help enhance that effort and benefit, so that we can ensure that they have the resources they need to be effective in their jobs. With that, I'll answer whatever questions that you might have about our program and the benefits that we're certainly seeing.
I had one question on the leadership training. You know, this was quite a while ago that we went over this. I think it might have actually been before you were with us, Joel, but I want to say it was like in 2020, this committee moved to approve a special outside of the budget DEI training for public safety. And at that time, we'd made a motion as a committee to explore DEI trainings for the entire organization, because inclusivity, racial awareness is not just an issue that public safety professionals face, the whole organization should. So I'm just curious if DEI trainings are something that human resource consultants, has relationships with, or might be able to make recommendations to the village with in the grand scheme of leadership training.
Sure, absolutely. I think they do. They've expressed that ability with us as well. I do know that the individuals that the village did approve to go through that DEI training to become instructors have completed that. Obviously, because of COVID, things changed. Now, that's not to say that they couldn't formulate a training program for village staff outside of COVID, but they have not had the opportunity to actually provide a class yet. So as they become more established in that, we will look towards incorporating that into our training program as well. Not tied to the memo either. We're also testing and experimenting the League of Wisconsin League of Wisconsin Municipal Mutual Insurance Program. Say that fast 5 times, right, Terry? LWMMI has an online university of training programs that can be provided to employees. We have access to that. There's a variety of different training opportunities on there, ranging from hazard communication and bloodborne pathogens to harassment and bullying in the workplace to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are in a testing phase right now to see if they're a worthwhile effort. We get them free. We're not paying for them, but it does account for about an hour of an individual's time to sit and go through an online course. Our experience thus far is that they're a little dry and our employees may not be gaining the full value of the content. So I don't know that we'll be using them, but we are attempting to try them out as a trial run at this time. I should say I subjected our 2 new hires, Haley Youngren, our multimedia communications person. So she's sitting in the back room to about 16 hours of these training, as well as Patrick Legal. And they haven't come to me with open arms saying how wonderful the programs are yet. So,
Another question I had too was, I'm really, really pleased with the progress we've made using human resources consulting. It's awesome seeing a list of so many things accomplished and some really progressive moves that are recommended for the remainder of 2022, just to ensure that we're a community that is an employer of choice, where we retain employees and attract the absolute best and the brightest to the organization. With the trend thus far, would you say leadership's intention is to maintain this as a contracted service, or as had been originally presented, would the idea still be to add a full-time staff member in a generalist role in the 2023 budget, or too soon to tell?
sure. I think it's probably a little too soon to tell. So I think if certain employees stay with the village, namely Terry, if Terry does a lot of heavy lifting as it relates to the administrative process of HR-related matters, and so a significant burden of doing that administrative work is not being placed on HR. So they're left to deal with kind of more the one-offs, if you will, right? An employee comes to them with an issue and then they can address it. In the event that Terry decides to retire and move to greener pastures or do something else, I think at that point, we definitely would have a need to review how we staff that function.
Overall, it looks like this has been a really good move for the village. The 2 days that we have available on site, how many hours per day are they here?
They are here 2 hours each day. Monday 2 hours, Wednesday 2 hours, okay. And of course longer if they need to. And there's times where we have special meetings that are scheduled. Generally speaking, I try to schedule my meetings with HR during their established office hours to not incur additional billing. However, if we have extraordinary meetings or the employee handbook meeting, they don't necessarily fit within the time frame of their established office hours, then they will come in addition to that as well.
Okay. And what did I see, 4 to 6, or yes, 4 to 6 specific meetings a week. So 2 or 3 a day. Has there been any apprehension of employees walking in with whether it's just help or issues? It doesn't seem like a lot to me, but maybe it doesn't need to be.
No, not at this point. If I'm understanding your question correctly, so if an employee has concerns about walking into the office that HR is using, generally speaking, the employees, we have very few walk-ins, right? So it's more or less, I call HR, I want to meet with you. Are you going to be in on Monday? Yeah, I'll be available at 2:00. Okay, did you want to meet me in my office, or would you rather meet in a different location throughout Village Hall, or maybe off-site, or maybe we can talk directly over the phone? That way no one sees you coming in. HR is really sensitive to knowing what the employee desires. If they want to maintain full and strict confidentiality, they want no one to know that they met with them, they have the ability to meet off-site, meet over the phone, things of that nature to appreciate that employee's desire.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions for Joel? Okay. Information only, we'll move on. Number 8, items for next agenda.
Would this be where we would make the motion for the, yeah, that'd be an appropriate spot?
Yeah, I think if the committee desires to have staff put together a proposal for how we want to address maybe providing incentives for new hires, that could be certainly an item for this point in the agenda.
Could we look at retention as well, if we're going to say new hires, but also retention? Include that with it, because what you had mentioned before, Joel, about bringing somebody in a little higher and then your existing employee. So if we could discuss maybe both of those. That's
Certainly.
one of the things we should add that.
I think that's a good idea.
And I think retention will primarily be addressed through the wage and compensation study, but maybe
Might be something in-
maybe it looks like just, the motion I was going to make would be motion to direct staff to bring forth an analysis on recruitment and retention, and if merited, a proposal be brought forward at a future meeting about a one-time market-driven program to help empower staff in terms of recruitment and retention. That might look like, hold on, this is not within the motion now, sentence, period, comment. That might look like a one-time recruitment bonus, or it might look like if an existing employee has a competing offer with another organization is looking to leave, it might look like a one-time retention bonus that, could be followed up with in the annual budget process. I really don't think we should have a standing procedure of addressing wages outside of the budget period. I really do feel that that's adequately met in the budget period, but it sounds like we're going to have some really useful data brought forward later this year that should drive those decisions. But in the meantime, I'd just like to empower you to.
Yeah, I think just to be fair to especially open record or open meeting law, and just because it's not an item on the agenda, just simply, hey, if you can bring back information as it relates to open or to recruitment and retention, and then that'll be placed on the agenda, and then we can have a more fruitful conversation and dialogue on it.
Okay, so we don't need a motion or anything here? Okay, okay. Anything else? Anybody? All right.
Do you want to ask them to put on the agenda the investments?
Oh, yeah.
Just have someone come and talk about investments as well?
Oh, sure.
Kelly?
Sure.
All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. We are adjourned.